Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to our Parent Leadership Series on College Knowledge. So with us today, we have Brian Albertson, College Admission Rep from Illinois State University, Haley Pacina, Admission Rep from Aurora University, and Yadira Cisneros from Waubonsie Community College. We chose AU, ISU, and Waubonsie because we have a large number of students that apply each year to these schools. So we wanted to get some more knowledge and share it with all of you as part of this series. So with that being said, if you would like to discuss who you are, how long you've been with the university, let's start with you, Brian.
Thanks, Sue. Hi, everybody. Again, my name is Brian Albertson. I've been with Illinois State University for just over 6 years now. I am a regionally based staff member, so I live and work in Chicagoland to work with students and families just like yourself through the college search process. And I'm just one part of the college success team that you have available to you, right? There's the college reps, but then also the awesome resources at your school, your high school, of your counselor, and also your family and your friends.
Awesome. Haley?
Hey everyone, I'm Haley Pacina. I've been with Aurora University for about 3 years now, but I am also an AU alum, so go Spartans. And I get to work with students from West Aurora and a lot of the other local high schools in the Aurora area, but West is my favorite because I'm also a graduate of West High. So I work with families and students through the admissions process here at AU, going through campus visits with them and just kind of helping them through that whole process, including financial aid.
Awesome. Yadira?
Hello, everybody. My name is Yadira Cisneros, and I'm an admissions advisor here at Waubonsie Community College. I've been with the college for about 2 years now, and I am a representative for West Aurora schools and many of the other in-district schools that we have. But I also help students with the admissions process here at Waubonsie and a few other things.
Awesome. Brian?
Yes, hi, I'm Ryan Gatbunton. I'm part of the College and Career Readiness team. I'm a school counselor here at West Aurora High School, and I'm also the scholarship coordinator. And in just having the privilege, just thanking Haley and Yadira and Brian for being here. Just to start off today, we have some questions starting off with student resources. So we want to open it to all three of you. Thinking about when students come in to school or when they're considering school, what kind of student support resources do you have, in particular with academic assistance or even personal emotional support? What are available in your respective institutions, and what can students expect from these resources?
Sure. And so to start off, I think one of the things that we want students and families to know off the bat is that your success as a student is part of our responsibility as a college and university. And so we're all going to provide a lot of resources, but they might look just a little bit differently on different campuses. And so, for example, one of the biggest resources academically that we have for students and families at Illinois State is our Julia N. Visor Academic Center. And that's a tutoring center on campus that provides academic support in over 55 general education courses. And so that's a lot of classes that we provide that academic support for specifically in those areas. But they also do writing workshops, they do essay review, they do math workshops, time management workshops, some of those basic college skills even. And so you may be coming from a family who your parents didn't go to college, what we call a first generation student. We have different workshops and resources for students to learn how to do college and how to be successful academically and socially outside the classroom.
At Aurora University, we also have very similar tutoring services for our students. So if they need help with particular class content or just want help brainstorming ideas for their first research paper, they can go to that center that we have on campus. But we also have some other services. So if a student, it's their first year, they're away from home and they're just maybe struggling a little bit, we do have our counseling center and our wellness center. So they can go there for individualized counseling services or group therapy too. We'll have other activities on campus for students to kind of overcome those challenges that they might be facing as well. And then students that maybe struggle with a disability that maybe they've had for a while, maybe a learning disability that, that they came in with from high school. We do have a center on campus and a person that they can work with to make sure that they get the proper accommodations that they might need in order to make sure that they're successful in the classroom.
So similar to AU and ISU, we also offer academic supports with advisors that can help you with course selection and current and future semesters with other activities that students might need in achieving those goals. Student services and staff that can help you with course registrations, but also setting up your Wi-Fi here on campus. If you need a laptop, where to go. And even to ensure that you're getting the right books for the classes that you had selected. We also offer extra support and accommodations if you have specific needs that need to be met to enable for you to succeed in your college journey. Students who need accommodations will work with our Access Center and staff to identify and implement the appropriate and reasonable individualized accommodations. Then we also have life outside of the classroom with student clubs and organizations, athletics, civic engagement, study abroad, career exploration.
That's great. I know that sometimes students coming into college, they feel like they have to do everything on their own. And it's great to know that no matter what type of college they end up with, especially from our examples here, there are supports for academic assistance, supports for even some personal assistance. Along that same line, we know that the trajectory of a student going to college is for developing a career, or at least going into one. So can you tell us a little bit about your career support services? And I like the order that we went into. So maybe Brian, if you have that, and then Haley, and then Yadira.
Absolutely. So, one of the things that I like about Illinois State, and, I'm sure many campuses have this, but we have internship coordinators in every single academic department on our campus. And so that's someone specifically identified in the academic department to help students find hands-on job experiences, even while they're students at the university. And then we also have a university-wide career services area. They provide a lot of services, even in your freshman year, such as a career exploration class. So, we're talking about careers now. There's probably students thinking, I don't even know what I want to do yet. And that's okay. We have a career exploration class that our career services office puts together every year. And students can enter that class. It's only 8 weeks. You find out what careers might be a good fit for you. And then we find a major on our campus to help get you there. And so we have a lot of success with students choosing majors through that and careers through that specific class. The Career Services Office will also print out your business cards for you, print off your resume on resume paper. They'll take your LinkedIn profile headshot photo. So they do a lot of those services. But then, of course, the meat and potatoes of what they do, or the main thing that they do, is career advising. And so doing mock interview prep, going over your resume, helping you find different employers that might reflect your values and your skill set. And so they're really skilled at those things. And, again, we talk about careers early on, because it's not something you just start doing in your senior year. You're going to college to get into that career path. And so we want you to start that early.
At AU, we have similar things as well with the career services. We have our Center for Student Success. So students are paired with an advisor with their declared major if they have a declared major already. And so they'll work with them to kind of make sure that, they're on a good path, they're doing well in their classes throughout their 4 years at AU. We also have a program called First Year Experience, or FYE, where students kind of take like a career aptitude type of test over their summer time before starting off as a freshman. And it's really, for students, it helps them kind of determine what they already know. So it confirms it for them, or it gives them other options to consider, or it helps our undecided students maybe consider something that they didn't think about before. So they'll do that as part of a a course that they get credit for. And then throughout their first year, they have a kind of like a mentor, some staff or faculty member on campus that they'll meet with periodically to kind of check in with them, in addition to their academic advisor. And then junior year, everyone has a declared major by junior year. So at that point, if they're doing internships and things like that, they can work directly through the Center for Student Success or particular faculty members that they may have built a great relationship with, and can kind of rely on them to help them through that search process. But they do pair with a faculty member in their declared major at that point to help make sure that they have a plan for after they walk across that stage, whether it's grad school and starting that application process and figuring out what they need to have complete, or, you know, searching for jobs and seeing what's out there and what maybe they might need to add to their resume to kind of vamp that up in time for when they graduate.
At Wabanzi, we offer also internships, study abroad opportunities, and expert resume advice that can also help you. What can you do with your major? You are also able to meet with your career advisor. So aside from your assigned academic advisor, you can also visit our career center to discuss your options and also take advantage of our career coach, which is an online service that can help you narrow down careers based on your personality and interests.
Great, that's awesome. So I asked a round of questions just basically on what you have. So it's awesome that you have some specific things to address some of the needs that your students have. But just pragmatically, could you give us a brief description on how a student would go about accessing these resources? Do they just go to a building, and is there a place that they enter and just walk right in? Do they have to make an appointment? Are they assigned somebody? How does that look like for them?
Ryan, I love the way that you asked that question, because us at the college and university, we're not mind readers, right? We don't know exactly what every student needs and what every student wants. And so there is some level of responsibility on the student to come to us and say, hey, I need help with this. And hey, you know, I'm thinking about applying for an internship. What do I need to do? And so, yeah, I mean, one of the best ways to take advantage of these services and these programs is by putting yourself out there, walking into the Career Services Center and saying, hey, I need help with resume. What do I need to do to set up an appointment? All of our universities have websites. So going onto the website and seeing the best way to register for an appointment or to speak with someone. Something unique that our Career Services office has done in the past as well is they've gone into the residence halls to meet with students. So they meet students where they are, where they're actually living. Of course, not in the room, but in a common area like a lounge or something like that. But to go over resume and cover letter details and things like that. So again, you have to be proactive. You have to put yourself out there because we're not going to be able to, know what every single student needs at the time. But picking up the phone or texting, maybe sending an email, that's going to be the best way.
Yes, there certainly is a level of responsibility for the student to kind of reach out for what they need. It's part of becoming an adult and going through that college process and your time in college and taking on those things on your own, but we make it very easy for students. So you can either walk in if you have your resume draft and you just all of a sudden, you're ready to kind of go over it with somebody. You can walk in to the Career Center, or you can make an appointment, of course, too. Being a small university and having our faculty so hands-on with a lot of things too, like internships, there's always office hours for faculty or making, appointments with them too. If you just you're a scheduled person like me and you want to have everything written down, you don't want to throw anyone off guard, but everyone's very available. The Center for Student Success will also host kind of events throughout the year too, and they're fun events. They're not necessarily anything in particular, but just to kind of let students know, hey, we're here. And this is how you can get a hold of us. This is how we can help you, just to make themselves known to students.
So at Wabanzi, all students are assigned an academic advisor, and to help us meet with all the students, there will be a hold placed on your account before the next semester starts. Therefore, you are able to meet with your academic advisor and ensure you are taking the right classes. but all advisors are available by phone, email, Zoom, live chat, and in person. I would say the best way to contact would be just to pick up the phone and give them a call. But also you can stop in at any of the student services location at each campus.
Yes, and before we transition to the round of questions Ms. Fowler is going to ask, I just want to say, that is what we try to do here in high school, is trying to help our students become independent and also become their own self-advocates, where they're looking for these resources. Sue Fowler and the College and Career Center is an example of one resource that they can access on their own by making an appointment with her. Unfortunately, with COVID, it's been a little difficult to access the just walking right in, but under normal circumstances, students are available to walk right in. So creating that habit for our students was very important at the get-go, and I appreciate your pragmatic answers to those questions. Sue?
No, an impressive list of resources that you have available. And it kind of answered this already, but leading into how uncommon, I know right now the pressure on juniors and seniors to have it all figured out. Do you find a lot of students enter undecided?
So undecided is our biggest major on campus, and that is true on most, if not all, college campuses. Nationally, about 33% of students will enter college as an undecided or undeclared major. At Illinois State, that number is closer to about 20%. We do try to get students into a major if possible, just because we know that helps with on-time graduation and working towards a specific degree area. But coming in undeclared or undecided, it doesn't mean that you're not going to graduate in 4 years. We have a number of students and a high percentage of students who do still graduate within 4 years coming in undeclared. It just means that your options are still open, right? And so say you're coming in undeclared to Illinois State, we're going to get you introductory courses to the different areas that interest you. So maybe you're interested in business and say biology and criminal justice. Well, we'll get you into the introductory courses for each of those three majors. And guess what? All three of those classes will work towards any degree on campus. And so we're just keeping your options open at that point, and then you would apply into an academic program, say after your first semester, first year, or even in your second year.
Agree. Undecided is also one of our top majors, the top major at AU for students to enter in with. I think students sometimes even get scared to submit an application without having something picked. And it's an option on everyone's application to have an undecided or undeclared major. And then they're also sometimes afraid to, what if I don't stick with it? It's okay to change your major. Students change their major a lot. I think the average is 7 times by the time a student will graduate college. So it's perfectly fine to not know as a 17 or 18-year-old what exactly you want to do for the rest of your life. And knowing that there's resources on, all these college campuses that we've talked about to help students kind of figure out what it is they want to do, what's a good fit for them, what they're passionate about, so they can pursue those different options as a major.
Yes, at Waubonsie as well, we have over 60% of our students attending Waubonsie are uncertain of their major, and that is okay. As Haley said, being 17, 18, right out of high school, it's okay not to know what you want to do the rest of your life. But choosing Waubonsie will allow you to explore different courses at a low cost. But we also have many services that can help you decide on that major, such as the career exploration class or career counseling, the internships, career coach.
No, that's awesome. It sounds like there's a lot of great resources to help guide and steer students. April is testing month, so I'm going to move on to some testing questions. What are some general impacts that an SAT or ACT score can have on placement, scholarships, and admission?
Great question, Sue. I think one of the really important things to note is that a test score, is just a number. It does not define you as a student or a human being. Okay, so that's one thing. It is just one piece of the puzzle that we use in the admissions process. And guess what? Some of our schools are no longer using test scores for consideration of those items. So, for example, and maybe let's start here. Test optional is a process where we don't use the test score in terms of what we're reviewing as part of the application for admission. This has been a process that has been used for years, but it really accelerated in the last year due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And so a number of schools, Illinois State included, adopted a test optional admission policy, meaning we do not consider the test score as part of your application. So your question is probably, well, then what do you consider? Well, we consider more heavily your grade point average, your transcript information, such as the courses you've taken, the rigor of those courses, and your grade trends. We'll look at a personal statement, should you choose to submit one, your extracurriculars, and some of those other other outstanding pieces of information so we'll consider that. So in some cases, a test score can be used in terms of admission, scholarship, honors program. Some schools will still require that information, but for an example, at Illinois State, we do not require that information, such as a test score, for admission, scholarship, or our honors program.
At AU, we also have a test optional policy across campus. So no matter what major you might be looking at, you can apply as a test optional student. Like Brian said, a test score does not define a student. It's one day of their life, and they, sometimes students are athletes and they get concussions, the week before their SAT or ACT, and we understand that. So at AU, if you have, especially an outstanding GPA, you can be admitted to the university without a test score if you don't feel like your test score represents you well and your abilities as a student. Now, I do want to point out the difference between test optional and test blind. So a lot of schools are test optional, which means if you choose not to submit a test score for your application, that's fine. But if they receive a test score officially, if either you send it to them officially, or maybe it's on your high school transcripts, schools won't necessarily ignore that. Test blind means they will ignore the test score no matter whether they receive it or not. So just making sure that, when you're taking the SAT and things like that, thinking about who you might be sending it to, if it is on your transcripts, knowing that it's always a good conversation to have with your admissions counselor at the different schools that you're looking at, especially if the score, wasn't the best representation of your academic abilities. Now, with that said, test scores that, do represent your abilities as a student can't help your application. Certainly, it can maybe help you earn more scholarship money, merit scholarship money. It can help you with placement into your first year, like math courses and English courses. So, if you get a good SAT or ACT score, you can test out of different things, and depending on your major, or you might skip ahead a few math classes or English courses, depending on that score. So it can help in that regard too, but test scores certainly aren't everything. There are other things, as Brian mentioned, like personal interviews or, writing samples and personal statements and things like that too.
To attend Waubonsie, ACT and ACT scores are not required. We will only take scores if they meet placement. Otherwise, we don't really consider them.
All right, thank you. Ryan?
Yes, so now we're looking at financing college. And as you know, for Illinois, it's a graduation requirement for our students to complete the FAFSA before they graduate. So looking at that, after a family does complete their FAFSA, and anyone could answer this, frankly, what are some key things to know as it relates to financial aid in your specific institutions?
Yeah, so I think, one of the most important things I would say is that, one, college is an investment. And so many families will look at the price of college and say, wow, that's a lot of money, right? And I know my family had that reaction, right? And it wasn't that long ago that I went to college, but that was a reaction my family had. But what we knew was that investing the time and the money now would lead to greater outcomes for my career earnings and potential after graduation. And so I think that's something to remember. The other thing to remember is that what you see on paper is not what you will pay. And what we mean by that is when you're looking at our brochure, when you're looking at our website and see what we call the sticker price, that is the most anyone would pay to attend the university, and most students don't pay that amount because there are things to help bring down that cost. And so there are things like scholarships, there's need-based financial aid, there are grants, there are loans. You can work on campus to pay towards your tuition and fees. And so everybody's financial aid offer will look a little bit different. It might have more scholarships, it might have more student employment, it might have more loans than other families, but there will be a way that we can make that, hopefully work for your family, but it will look a little bit different for every student. And because of that, the last piece of advice I would say is just because your neighbor or your friend, had a certain, financial aid offer from a school, that doesn't mean that that's what yours will be. And so colleges and universities go after different types of students and for different abilities and different skills and things like that for different reasons. And so while Illinois State may offer one student a very large financial aid package, there may be another student who lives just down the street that we aren't able to offer as much. And that may be based on specific qualities or skills that that student is bringing to the university.
I will echo everything Brian said about how financial aid packages can certainly look different for different students with scholarships and what you get as far as money from the FAFSA, right? So those grants and loans and things like that. But I do want to mention too that the FAFSA doesn't necessarily paint the whole picture for families, right? Because when you file the FAFSA, you're kind of looking at income and household income from 1 to 2 years prior to the time you're filing the FAFSA. So things change, right? Unfortunate things can happen. So if something like that happens within your family, talk with the financial aid office at the school, see if there's other resources that you can tap into to help you finance your education. Because schools do have things in place to help students that are going through situations like that, whether a parent lost their job or, there may have been a death in the family or just, something like that, special circumstances that would allow for the school to maybe grant the student more money and not loan money either, not money that they have to pay back, but that kind of grant scholarship type of free money that everyone loves.
In the past, I have always recommended for every family to apply for financial aid, even if you think you're not going to get qualified for. But especially here at Waubonsie, because everything is so affordable, I still push that with students, just again, because you never know if you do get that aid or not.
All right, awesome. Thank you for that. Moving on to student life. Can you give a brief description of what student life is like at your school and maybe even some advice on what students can do to get involved?
So student life is exciting in college, and that's probably going to be true for many of the schools that you're going to consider, if not all of the schools you consider. Hopefully it's exciting. But it will look differently based on the campus you go to. And so, for example, Illinois State, we're 2 hours, maybe just under 2 hours from Aurora. And we're south of Aurora. So we're in central Illinois. So we feel very suburban, but we are, in central Illinois again. We're only a community of about 130,000 residents. That's very different than the Chicago suburbs. And so, one of the first events that I love during our school year, one of the first events of the school year is our Sweet Corn Festival. It's the first weekend of school every year. We welcome all of our students back with 50,000 ears of sweet corn, and every student gets a free ear with their student ID. And so that's a cool event that happens at the start of the year. But we also have things like 400 student organizations, anything from, a varsity esports program to a Future Business Leaders of America organization to the Student Education Association, or maybe even a circus. We're one of 2 schools in the country to have a circus. And so these are some of the little unique little tidbits that we have on our campus. But I think the kind of the resounding theme of this is you have to find a campus that you can find your people at, and kind of find your niche of students that you think you can be successful with, because as humans we all try to find community, and that's what our campuses try to do within the first couple of weeks of campus life, is to help you find your community, your people, on campus, because that's what's going to make you successful. And that's what's going to make your college experience. People make places. It's not about the football stadium. It's not about the rec center. It's not about the, brand new, I don't know, dining center, for example. I mean, that might be helpful, right? I mean, everybody likes good food, but, it's the people that are there going through that experience with you that's important.
So if you ever visit AU or you've known anyone that's gone to AU or is going to AU, you'll probably, if you quickly ask them, what does AU feel like? Mostly, I'm going to say 99% of the time, that person's going to tell you it feels like family. Being a smaller university, we have about 4,000 undergraduate students. We definitely have that family feel. So students from majors other than your own, faculty very well, staff very well on campus. So you get to know people well, and they become like a second family to you. We are mostly a commuter campus, so we have events for both, residents and commuter students, but sometimes students will visit, and they want to be a commuter, and they'll ask like, will I feel like I'm part of campus if I'm not living on campus? And the answer is always yes. Events are always going on during the day and in the evenings, even later at night. If there's events like that, commuters are always welcome to come to campus for those events. I know the student favorite is pancake night, usually each semester before finals week rolls around. So they kind of have a little fun break that they can take part in. We have other events going on for all students. One that started, I'm so sad I missed it. It was right before I started working at AU. We brought a camel to campus and I had it on the quad for hump day. So there's just fun things like that. We'll have food trucks and different things for students to come and enjoy, but there's always something going on. And this is true for most schools too, but it's always free. It's included in those tuition and fee costs. So, definitely take part in those activities, because those are what make your college memories. Yes, it's great to get a degree and get a great job, but you want to look back on your time and remember all the really fun stuff that you did too. So take part in those activities when you are in college.
So I always get asked this question just because we're a community college, but yes, we do have activities and athletics. So we have over 16 sports, 8 for men, 8 for women, and over 35 student clubs and organizations. And if there's one that that you have a passion for, you can go ahead and sign up to open it. So we definitely have clubs and organizations at the community college level.
That's great, from corn to camels and, I think that's all awesome. And just the athletics and activities that you could tap into a student, definitely it can be involved, so that actually brings back to, the choosing college, and the importance of looking at that. Can you describe how that is an important component in visiting the college and getting involved, and then how that might help it look when they're considering their appropriate academic, social, and financial fit when they're visiting and getting involved? So I know it's a loaded question, but whatever you could speak to it, that would be great.
Yeah, and I think, that kind of sheds the light on, this is a process. This is an involved process that takes, can take months, even a year to really figure out what's going to be a best fit college for me. And I think the awesome thing about this event and this session is that we have 3 great schools, 3 very different schools that if you visit ISU, you visit Aurora, and you visit Waubonsie, my apologies, Waubonsie Community College, and you visit our 3 schools, we're going to be 3 very different institutions. And all 3 of us are going to be a great fit for some of you students. And so coming to visit us will tell you, we'll tell you about our academics. It will tell you about, and hopefully even within that, you'll be able to maybe even meet a faculty member or somebody within academic advising to talk about that advising process. You can talk to somebody about the financial process of financial aid and merit scholarships. But I think visiting is most important to find out that social aspect or that, environment aspect of what's this community like. Maybe Central Illinois isn't a good fit for you, and that's okay. If you were to call me and say, hey, Brian, I really like ISU, but I just can't do Central Illinois for, college, That's okay. We want the best for you as college admission representatives. We are looking for people who are going to be good fits for our university. And so the only way you're going to find that out is by visiting us. And that's probably the most important thing that you can do in your college search.
Yes, the campus visit is probably the key in the college search process. At AU, we get a lot of local students, so we might not run into as many issues with students not, being familiar with the type of area that we're located in and things like that. But we do get, out of state athletes and different things. So when they come visit, we really encourage them to maybe stay overnight, stay in the area, check out the places to eat, go to a game, talk to coach, kind of do all of those different things. If they're a non-athlete, we definitely want them, talking with a faculty member and things too. And even for our local kids too, all of those things are available for them to definitely take part in to see if it's going to be a good fit. I will say when I was in high school, I did not want to go to AU at all. I was against it. I wanted to go to a school where I would have had to leave home and live on campus and things like that. So I visited it and I didn't like it. I didn't see myself. There was a great school, but I realized in that process that I wanted to stay closer to home. I wanted a smaller school because I was more of a shy student. So I wanted to have more opportunities to kind of come out of my shell. And I knew I wasn't going to do well with, classrooms of, more than 100 students. So those are really important things to definitely consider and seeing what's a good fit for you. I think too, financially fit is also an important aspect. You might find a few different schools that you've visited and you loved, and they're all great fits. They have what you're looking for. And it might come down to the financial aspect, which one is going to be the best, fit for you in that regard. So getting packaged, filing your FAFSA, getting an award letter, seeing everything, you've checked all the boxes, you've done everything you can do to try to bring that cost down as much as possible, and deciding that way, because yes, there might be a school that you really, really love, but affording college is also an important aspect, and there's lots of things to help you do that. But none of us want you to come to our school and not be able to pay, and the repercussions that kind of come from that. So we, talk to your admissions rep, talk to your financial aid counselor to make sure that it's a good fit in that regard too.
A campus visit, it gives you the opportunity to give you that firsthand view of the college. Through Waubonsi's website, you can only see so much, but you really want to get out there and get the feel of the college, walk around the quad, sit in the classroom, and really envision yourself there as a student. When considering a college, you want to consider the location. So at Waubonsi, so if you know that you're not ready to leave home and you want to stay local, this is a good place to start with. You can also save money with room and board to reduce your cost of living. And I would say to also consider the class size. So if you know that you don't want to be in a classroom full of hundreds of students and you want more of a one-on-one connection with the professor, here at Waubonsi, we have the 19-to-1 student ratio to professor. So I think that's a good one to consider as well.
That's great. Yeah, I know that for me personally and the process for my children, it was so important before choosing college and even after receiving admissions applications and all for the same reasons. I'm glad that you pointed out how important it is to envision yourself as a student, envision what is, and also consider some important life circumstances like Haley mentioned, realizing that, I need to be home or closer to home in this time of her life. Or opportunities to grow. So that's great. So we know sometimes though, students, they don't necessarily start at the school, so a lot of the questions were about students starting in your school as freshmen. So for both Brian and Haley, the Aurora University and ISU, you might find a lot of students transferring in, and Yadira, you might find a lot of students transferring out. Can you tell us a little bit about what that transfer process looks like from your ends?
Sure. So at Waubonsi, that's what we strive for, to help students transfer out to that four-year institution. So early on, they will work on with their academic advisor just to ensure that they're taking the right classes that will transfer out. But also we encourage those students to connect with those admission advisors over at that four-year institution, just so they can cross-check and make sure that they are taking the right classes to transfer over. So we're trying to streamline the process so then once they are done here at Waubonsee, they can go in and be successful at that four-year university.
Yeah, and so to kind of bridge off of that, at Illinois State, we actually have about 40 to 50 students who transfer from Waubonsee to Illinois State every fall. So Waubonsee is a great partner with us, and so we're able to guarantee the transferability of the coursework. You know, sometimes students and families will have the concern that, oh, you know, the courses won't transfer. I can tell you, if you are working with Waubonsee and you are working with Illinois State or the intended transfer institution that you're looking to go into, you're not going to have any problems with that. Completing an associate's or an associate's of arts at Waubonsee would be our recommendation. That completes the first 2 years of your degree at Illinois State. And then coming in, you know, as a transfer student, again, we have a number of students who do that, and it's a great option if you're looking to maybe stay a little bit closer to home for the first 2 years, or potentially even financially save a little bit.
We also get a lot of students from Waubonsee being so close to them. But for students that are maybe looking for a different pairing, not necessarily Waubonsee and AU or ISU, we do have our transfer guides on our website. So students can look and see maybe what classes are offered at Waubonsee or other community colleges or other four-year schools to see if they would transfer to AU. We also really encourage students that are thinking about transferring to talk with the transfer team to make sure that they are on the right path. Sometimes for specific programs, we might have classes that we want you to take here at our institution rather than, the community college might have it, but we might be more particular about what you take. So if you take it somewhere else, you might get credit for it as far as like an elective type of course, but you might end up taking the same class again because we want you to take ours. And that's going to be true for other four-year schools too, depending on the program that you're in. So very specific programs like maybe nursing or education, social work, things like that. We might have classes that we want you to take ours, basically. So always knowing that ahead of time is really important too. So looking at those transfer guides, making those conversations early on. I'll go into meetings with incoming freshmen that are thinking about transferring, and they'll mention that to me, and I'll go grab a transfer counselor right in that meeting so they can go ahead and have that conversation and kind of knowing what that might look like for them, and they can talk about what courses would be good ones to take for sure those first 2 years.
All right, so in terms of applying, can you give some advice on what is the application process and what would be one key piece of advice?
I think one of my pieces of advice that I give is you have to be organized in this process. Every school will have different requirements, different deadlines, different applications you have to complete, different scholarship deadlines. And so what I'd strongly recommend is creating a chart with the different schools that you're considering. So say, for example, you're considering ISU, Waubonsee, and Aurora, and you put all three of our schools on your list, and then you have a chart that lists the application opening date, the application deadline date or preferred deadline date, the different things that, the required documents that you'll need to submit to our offices. And so if you're able to stay organized in this process, that's going to be your key to success to maximizing your eligibility for admission to the universities you're considering, the academic programs you're considering, maximizing your opportunity for scholarships and financial aid. And so this is a process we go through every year. And so we have a well-oiled machine in terms of how these processes works. And we have it all listed on our website. So if you have questions, come directly to the source by going to our website or calling and emailing our office to say, hey, is the deadline, November 1st or is it November 15th? Because we know and we'll be able to help advise you through that process.
I love the chart idea. I did that as well. It's I love organization. My other piece of advice would definitely be to keep your options open and don't apply to just one school. You might have a dream school or maybe a couple schools you really want to look to go to, and for one reason or the other, you might not be able to attend, not necessarily because you don't get accepted or anything like that, but different circumstances can lead to different outcomes. So just kind of keeping your options open, knowing schools, deadlines, and what schools you can continue to apply to. When I was going to grad school, sometimes application fees can kind of add up. So when you have schools that maybe have application fees and things like that, if you're looking to keep that cost a little bit lower, sometimes schools do days where they waive the application fee. If maybe they're visiting your high school, they might allow you to waive that application fee. So look for those opportunities to apply on particular days. At AU, our application is always free. So maybe looking at schools too that have a free application to help keep those options open and to kind of see, what would be a good fit for you, and just kind of having those backups.
At Waubonsie, we have an open enrollment, so there's not really a set time when you should submit your application, but I would recommend the sooner the better if you're planning to come here for the fall. But the application is pretty simple. You just complete the application and it's about, I would say like 10 to 15 minutes long. They'll take you to complete. And after you submit, you will receive an X number, which is your student ID. And then an admissions advisor will get a hold of you to review the next steps. So super simple.
And one thing that I do want to share to anyone listening is all three of these schools have and do on-site application days with West Aurora. So we've had a lot of success with these. So if you're a current junior and you're thinking about one of these schools in particular, we will have things set up for you for next year. All right, so in looking at, first of all, this has just been, thank you so much for the time. This has been so valuable to us as counselors, but also our families and students. One last piece of advice, if you had to give one thing, one message that you would want either repeated from something you already said or something we haven't touched upon, what would be one piece of advice for our students and families?
One piece of advice that I'd give students and families is start early. And this is probably something that, students, your parents have told you throughout life, even in high school, is you have to start early, not to procrastinate. If there's any process, project, homework assignment to procrastinate, it's not the college search process. And there's a few reasons why. First and foremost, you have more options by starting early. If you wait and wait and wait until the last moment, say even the spring or summer of your senior year, the number of opportunities for admission, for scholarships decrease dramatically. And so maybe you're a freshman or sophomore in high school watching this right now. Start the college search now. Start thinking about where might I want to go to school? What might I want to study? And then start talking to your high school teachers. Hey, where did you go to college? I don't know an adult who doesn't like talking about their college experience. And so strongly recommend asking those questions. Start early because that's going to allow you to have more time at the end and feel better about your decision-making of what school you'll attend if you attend college after high school.
I would say don't be afraid of your counselors on both sides. So your high school counselors are there to help you. They have great knowledge on the college process. They've all gone to college, so they can talk about the schools that they've gone to. They, worked with plenty of students in the past on that have gone on to different schools, so they can provide you with some insight on just schools that might be of interest to you, especially ones that you've never maybe considered. But also don't be afraid of your college counselors. So you're not going to hurt my feelings if you don't want to come to AU. If we're communicating and you decide another school's a better fit for you, let me know. That's totally fine. I'm here to help you. So if you have no interest in AU at all, just let me know. Any questions that you have, don't be afraid to ask. I'm sure all of us are kind of in the up to date. So we have, texting that, you guys can text us, you can email us, you can call us. If you have quick questions, just let us know. We're not scary people. We're here to help you and we want to help you. We don't want to bother you by any means, but we definitely are just here as a resource to you guys. Even if you're not interested in AU, but you just don't know where to start. I love helping students just kind of start the process. So don't be afraid to even just reach out and not come to AU ever, or even give it a second thought.
Aside from what Brian and Haley just said, I say that once you are into college and you know where you are going to be settled at, I would say definitely take it one semester at a time and learn how to balance your social life with your school life and prioritize, make those lists. Also get involved with the college. It's a great way to make new connections and new friends.
Great advice. I love starting early, being organized, not being afraid of your counselors on both ends. I definitely see kids being a little nervous, especially of the college admission reps, and then balance. Those are all just great pieces of advice. Thank you again, Brian, Haley, and Yadira. We really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you very much for your time. And just for everyone else who's watching, be on the lookout for our next video series on April 29th, where we have a student panel discussing their journey of surviving the first year. So please be on the lookout for that. But again, we thank Brian from ISU, Haley from Aurora, and Yadira from Waubonsie. Thank you very much for this time.